Okay, hello everybody. We're gonna have a
Hello.
packed house. Guys, it's so nice to see you all, the shining happy faces. As always, we're recording this one. We've got PJ Ochlan here. I'm dying to ask all the questions, and I didn't mention this to you. You don't strike me as the nervous type anyway, but I've already had people messaging me going,
Cool.
oh, PJ, so yeah, so the buzz is there.
Well,
So
that's nice. Not like they can't find me in lots of other places too, but it's great. I'm glad to hear it.
I know it's nice though to have a chat and a cup of joe. And so PJ, I have heard, oh, fabulous, the best kind of guests, they come prepared.
Indeed, you called it narrator's cup of Joe. I had to have my cup of Joe.
Perfect,
I don't know if
perfect.
you can see the froth. Not quite. I can't tilt it that far.
Nope, can't see the, oh, yep, see it,
There it is.
see it.
Okay.
That's
It's like
perfect.
cappuccino in my fancy ACX mug, which I never use. I thought, oh, today might be a good time for it. So there we go.
It's kind of ironic in a kitschy way.
Ironic in a kitschy way. Exactly
Yeah.
right. That's what I'm going for.
We've got people joining left, right, and center. I don't think we need much of product placement, the Stacy says. I don't think we need much of an introduction. You guys know the rules. If you have a question, type in big caps question before it, and I'll ask PJ. If you don't, I'm going to assume you're talking about your latest beverage, your gardening, your kids, and all the rest of it. PJ doesn't need much of an introduction because he's famous. He's famous for the webinars. He's famous for being an amazing narrator. He's famous for being the coach that everyone would die to go to. I've been saving you up because I hear that you're a master at dialects, at accents, and there are some in the room, for a friend, obviously not me, that find the accent route difficult. And can do the ones they can do, but sometimes
Yeah.
look like a deer in the headlights when it comes to others. So I'd love to hear a bit. You've got a varied background. You've worked with mega stars. You're in LA, my old home, which I'm jealous of. I'd love to hear what brought you to the audiobook world.
Oh boy. Well, it came out of acting. I've been acting for 35 years, just had my 35th anniversary in the business. So
Congratulations.
thank you. I know exactly when it was because I signed my first professional contract on my birthday. So I always know exactly how long it's been official. I did VO right from the get-go. Like even as a kid, when I was doing all my kid acting things, I was doing a lot of VO stuff. Not a ton, but just some commercials, some promo things.
How old? How old were you when you
11.
started?
11.
Did you were you like in LA and like one of those like child actor people? How did that happen?
Well, yes to the latter and no to the former. I was in New York. I was born and raised in New York. And I here's a funny story. So are you familiar with Lori Loughlin, the actress?
Yes, yes.
Okay. She's been in the news for unfortunate reasons more recently,
Yes.
but Lori goes back quite a ways. So when Lori was a kid, she was on a soap called Edge of Night. I grew up on Long Island in a small town out in Suffolk County, and Lori grew up across the street from us. And she's probably about 10, maybe 11 years older than me, I'd say, because she was in high school with my cousin. So about 10, 11 years older. But my mom saw what her mom went through going into the city every day for auditions and what that life was like, the city being Manhattan. So the back and forth, and it was crazy. So my mom was like the antithesis of a stage mother. She didn't want me to be an actor, like under no circumstances. And then when I was in elementary school, they were doing a high school production of Oliver, but they wanted to cast some elementary school students to be in it to like play Fagin's Boys and all that. And I got cast. And then I think it was the superintendent of the school system was at the performance and said to my mom, let him do this. She took me to an interview with a manager who was notoriously picky. And he would see like, I don't know, 40, 50 kids or something and not sign anyone. And I got signed. Me and one other boy that day got signed. And then within my first 2 years in the business, I had done about 25 national commercials. And I started booking TV jobs. I was doing Shakespeare for Papp by the time I was 14.
And was this coming from you? Was this like a
Yeah,
burning
entirely.
desire? Do you remember the first time you realized? Do you remember what it was that triggered it, that just thought, this is who I am?
No, I don't remember like a defining moment. My mom says the first time I started talking about it, I was like 4, and I looked at the TV and said, I want to do that. So that's sort
Wow.
of funny. But I don't remember like a specific defining moment, but it was a lot of bugging her over the years to like, let me have a shot at it. So then I did it. Anyway, that one thing parlayed into the next. There was some VO peppered in, and this long, long way to walk a dog, to get back to your question. I was doing another Shakespeare production in LA many, many moons later. This is over a decade ago, I guess. And a friend of mine in the cast, Abby Creighton, I don't know if you guys know Abby as a narrator. So we were doing this production together. And Abby had done some work with the Dions. This is when Bob was still alive. And then Bob and Deborah would go to shows all over LA, go to, all these theatrical productions looking to recruit narrators. And in this production, I spoke 7 different languages in like the first minute of the show, like rapid fire stuff. So got to talking with them, and they were like, you'd be great at audiobooks. You got to come in. So I went in an audition, and then I guess, rest is history. So that's where it all sort of started.
So, but okay, so if you look at this path, right, if you were writing your memoir, I'm famous for not liking to do memoirs, but if you were writing your own memoir, right,
Yeah.
it would look like this was a fruitful road full of didn't you have any dark nights of the soul along this path where you were like, what am I doing? Or was it just like an assured thing? You went from success to success to success.
Which part? You mean the road of the entire career?
Yeah, the entire career.
Of course. I mean, yeah. I currently have dark nights of the soul. That doesn't stop.
I think we all do this year.
Yeah. Does that ever go away? I don't know. We're actors. So yeah, that doesn't stop. Along the way, I mean, yeah, things were tough. I often joke around. Well, it's not even a joke. It's really true. It's very sincere, but I say I joke around about it in that over my career, I had a lot of what you'd call big breaks, right? These big moments. I know you're a fan of Little Man Tate. We talked about that a little bit before the call. So that was a huge one. I was submitted for Academy Award nomination for that. I dropped Joe Papp's name as I was talking about the early part of my career. That's a huge deal, being part of the New York Shakespeare Festival when Joe was still alive. That was crazy. I've been on Broadway. I got hired as a series regular.
Did any of these huge deals stop feeling like huge deals, or did each huge deal feel like, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened to me?
Everyone was a big deal. Absolutely. Because, and that is leading to my point about the big deals, because with each big deal, you think like, I did it. I'm not going to have to worry anymore. The jobs are going to come to me, and it'll be easy. I can write my own ticket. And inevitably, after every single one of them, no matter what they were, I was back on the street hoofing it. I was in restaurants. I was waiting tables for, I've never done the math, definitely a total of over 10 years. I became a sommelier. I became a certified sommelier. I became a general manager in the restaurant world. People were throwing money at me to give up my acting career to take over this operation, and we need you to hire like another 40 people and do all these things. And it was always, those were the real challenges. I never once in my life thought about giving up this stuff. Not once, never seriously. It was that stuff when it was the dangling of the security blanket.
Yeah.
Like, I could have that. Ooh, that would cover the mortgage pretty comfortably. Those are the moments where you stop and you think, could I do that? Would that be like an option? And very seriously, I can say never once did I consider it in that big of a way. The biggest one was at one point I went into radio, and I was in radio for about, it was like 9 years full-time, almost exactly 9 years full-time in radio. And I had my own shows, and I was producing, and the shows I had, I was announcing like classical music. I hosted these interview vignettes that were on a bunch of different stations and stuff. that I got to produce. I did some public affairs stuff. I mean, I was on the air a good amount, but I was also working as creative director. So I was doing a lot of writing. It was a lot of office stuff. It was sitting in traffic. For those of you who know LA, on the 405 for interminable
I miss
hours.
LA traffic.
No, you don't. No, you don't, Daniela. No, you don't. That's not. There's a lot to miss about LA. The traffic is just not allowed to be on that list. So just that life, that started to dominate. But even when I went into that, it was with the knowledge of the ownership that if I get a big acting gig, I'm taking it. Anything that big that comes along, I'm not saying no to acting work. I'll be an executive. I'll wear a tie to the office. I'll be on air. I'll do all the other office stuff, but it's never going to be at the expense of this, right? That was the closest though, because it was really slow for me in acting during that period, really slow. So there were those moments where it's like, I guess this is my new life. You have those, and those aren't happy moments. I was doing creative things. I was on the air, it was still performing to a degree, but it wasn't fulfilling, Yeah. And that was so life dominating for so long that that was the closest I got to not really feeling like I was still acting, if you will. But even during that period, I took 2 theatrical productions that ran for a few months each. I did, some more commercials. I landed a few guest star things, a little guest star or co-star on this series or that. So over that time, there were gigs, but nothing huge.
Do you stop and think, this is the difference? This is what people don't realize, I think. That is the life of a successful actor. There's a difference between celebrity and an actor. I mean, sometimes the two meet, but a successful actor better learn how to wait tables.
Yep.
I was the worst waitress. I was the worst waitress on earth.
That's funny.
Horrible.
How long did you do it?
I got fired. I got fired every time. And the last time when I dropped that cake on that French family's feet, it was not my fault. And I've never been able to do it since. I literally have
There's
in
a soundbite
LA.
for you.
Well, because how LA
that last time when I dropped that cake on the French family's feet, that's a good
layers.
Line. That's like the first line of the chapter. Awesome.
But the thing is, LA can be, I think, in the way that it's surreal. I'm sure it's changed a lot since I moved, but you can walk out the street and there's Jimmy the heroin addict in your nice neighborhood on the corner, and then there's $17 million cars next to you, and then there's you. When am I going to get my next acting gig? And oh my God, can I afford rice?
Yeah.
And I can't eat rice because if I'm going to get my next acting gig, I have to be skinny.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a special kind of life there. It takes a certain kind of grit to live a day-to-day life in LA as an actor. And I mean, keeping your head in the game for that. How do you manage that? How do you manage your mindset though? How do you keep going? Are you just like an action person?
Yeah, to some degree, but I guess here's the punchline. The answer to that question I never got back to. And now you reminded me that we need to get back to it. So what I started telling people, and I realized this actually happened, I was doing a thing with Johnny Heller in New York. It was when I think I've done his, the pre-APAC workshop like every year except for one. And it was the first time we ever did it. So this is quite a few years ago. And he asked all of us, what do audiobooks mean to you? And I was like, oh, that's a little curveball. And I thought about it. And it's funny because the answer I gave, I've now used publicly so many times in conversations like this, and even just, giving presentations and so on. I said, I talked about those big breaks without going into detail. And I said, but it wasn't until audiobooks were what made it possible for me to not have to worry about things, like to work as a working actor under a union contract every day that I want to. That's insane. Where do you get to say that as a working actor, you get to work every day that you want to? That just doesn't happen. Yeah. Even at the celebrity level, as you mentioned, even celebrities, like you might be able to write your own ticket and, sure, if there aren't the blockbusters being thrown at you. You can just throw your name out there and get smaller gigs and so on. But even at that level, if you think about it, there are so many household names that we all know. Actors, right? You go back, you think back to supporting actors in this, that, or the other movie, or so-and-so from that TV series you loved. You could probably come up with dozens and dozens of names and say, wait a second, I haven't seen them for like 10 years. Whatever happened to that person? That is the nature of the industry. It's vicious. It's cutthroat. It's vicious. It's unforgiving. And like you said, it takes that grit and so on. But audiobooks, finding, I can't even call it a fill-in. It's not a fill-in. It just became yet another hyphen in my acting career. But it became the hyphen that represents 90% of what I do now.
You just made me realize something, because it is vicious, LA, and I walked away from LA with an eating disorder. Now, I wouldn't say an eating disorder, like I'm one, like an official, but and audiobooks allow me to do what I want to do, whether I'm like skinny and perfect or not so skinny. I don't have to starve myself to act.
And you don't have to be in one of the major markets where it's happening. You can work remotely from anywhere you want. That's another
in my pajamas.
In your pajamas. Exactly right. Yeah. Or in nothing at all. That's the other one.
Yeah. No, I'm actually, I overdress to narrate, if anything. Somebody asked
when we had you on the webcast, didn't you say something about that? Like your routine, you like get dressed up to go to the booth or something?
I do. I've got leopard print. I wear my jewelry. I wear hats. I've just ordered an embarrassing amount of glass frames.
That's funny.
Which would be great, but I don't need glasses. But I'm thinking in the booth.
Just as a fashion statement.
For Instagram shots of me in the booth narrating with my, I like, you get to play, you get to act, you get to be yourself, and nobody gets to judge you because you don't weigh 75 pounds. Do you know what I mean? And which was my experience of LA, being an Italian full-figured girl moving to LA with I got in an elevator with models once. And that moment was it was like we were from a different planet. Yeah. But, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. So LA
is so weird. It's so weird in that respect. Like you talk about, I mean,
world.
It's very interesting that you know Jimmy, the heroin addict on the corner, though. I'm going to tell him that you said hello. You just threw his name out there, and I didn't realize everybody knows him. But yeah, you've got that stuff. You've got the random bizarre encounters with runway models, like you said. You've got every other car is a Bentley. It's like, wow, that costs more than most people's houses in America. These $300,000 vehicles rolling down the street, one after the other, like it's completely commonplace. But then, like you said, these weird, contrasts, extreme depression and poverty and mega wealth and the crazy things associated with the industry, which never cease to amaze. It's a very bizarre town in that respect, but somehow we get through it. It has a lot of positives too.
But I'll always consider it my home. I lived in London almost as long, because the thing about LA, if you go on like a spring or a summer evening and the smell of those flowers, those white flowers, I can't remember, orange blossom or something. And I don't care what's happened to LA now. You drive down Wilshire or something, or you're in old Hollywood and you can taste it in the air. Hollywood is still alive there, and and you're there. You've seen those images subconsciously growing up watching TV your whole life.
Well, in that respect, I mean, it's like a lot of other world cities. It has its own thing because of the industry, but New York, I think, has a similar energy, and I'm a New Yorker at heart. I always will be, but I've now been in LA longer than I lived in New York, which is hard to wrap my head around, but there you have it.
Will you ever move back?
Move back? No. I could see myself going back for sort of extended periods, but I would let work take me. If there was a reason to go back for a job, if I was back on the stage in New York or something like that, I would go and extend my stay, stick around for a bit. Camilla, my wife, doesn't love New York. She likes it well enough, but to live there, not really her thing. So it's just a different speed, and we're super happy here. Or at least I should
Lovely.
say really happy with the lifestyle. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be LA necessarily, but I still feel a need to be close to LA for the on-camera work and the other stuff that I do in the industry. But lifestyle-wise, just not being in a metropolis, and yet you still are, but you have a house and a yard and a view, and it's all very different. So we
Yeah.
dig it. It's cool.
So you're a coach. So how
Oh,
did were you ever an acting coach as well? Or how did the audiobook coaching come about? Tell me what kind of coaching, because every coach has a different kind of way that they approach it
yeah,
and type that they deal with. So tell me a little bit about your coaching, how you got into it.
yeah. That's another. I guess the way I try to compartmentalize things now is I have three very distinct hats. I have the actor / narrator hat. I have the producer hat because I have a SAG signatory production company, so I'm producing a lot of audiobooks now, especially, and for mostly like the big five publishers, and then the coach hat. So the coaching hat, where that got started is, again, it's more than a decade ago, but I was doing dialect coaching for the industry. So I would coach actors and, film, TV, so on. Just another one of the hats I wore, a talent I had that I exploited. So it was another hyphen that I picked up,
Right.
and I was good at it, and just became a thing. It's like, all right, great. To this day, I have never spent a penny advertising any coaching. I don't promote it. It's all it's as word of mouth and grassrootsy as it gets, even in
You
the
don't
industry.
need to. If
I
you're
don't need
good,
to,
you
but I
don't
also
need to.
don't want to. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
So people come to me because they want to work with me. I make time to work with them. That's it. I don't need to do it. I tell everybody that flat out. When I'm coaching people, I tell them I don't do programs. I don't do like, this is the course. You're going to be with me for 8 weeks or something. Nope. In fact, one of the big things I tell everybody is I want as little of your money as possible. I want you to be done with me. I'm a big believer in teach you how to fish rather than give you the fish,
Yeah.
and I've developed a few different things that I think are very specific to audiobook narrators, like the how to be your own dialect coach and the character voice toolbox, things like that are specific to the types of things our work calls for. So those are like fixed program things, and I'll often do those as group classes. In fact, we started doing them online because of 2020, and it worked out great. It was even better online than it was in person,
I
because when people,
remember that one came out.
yeah,
I really wanted to do
oh,
it.
it's so
Something.
fun. So fun. And it
Was
worked
it?
so great on Zoom because everybody could talk at the same time, but be muted. So suddenly I realized, like in the classroom setting, it was something I had thought about a little bit ahead of time. So I encouraged everyone to do it. And I was like, this is going to be good. I said, so guys, I know we're doing it online this time, but here's one cool byproduct of that. I want you to do everything with me as I'm doing it. And you can all talk at the same time, just stay muted. And it was like, it was so cool. It was this mind-blowing thing. I was like, this is so much better on Zoom than it is in
I love
person.
that.
So yeah, it was great. So we started doing that. But anyway, with all that said, the dialect coaching was a thing for a long time. Then with
Yes.
audiobooks, I started, I mean, there's a skill set to being a teacher, like you're a good coach or you're not, I think, maybe some things are learned, but there is something to being able to coach people and being good at it. So that's something I kind of already had in my wheelhouse. And then this is another interesting thing with Dion Audio. I don't know if you guys are aware, we lost Bob, who was a dear friend to ALS a number of years ago. And basically, I mean, put it bluntly, one of Bob's dying wishes was to teach audiobooks, to continue the passion for developing great narrators and so on and so forth. And Deb and I had talked about it. So we were tossing around, these thoughts and decided together, before Bob passed, we co-founded the Dion Institute. And by this point, even though I wasn't like the biggest name narrator by any stretch, I had done a lot of things in the industry that were getting some attention in terms of how I was figuring out how to do things and
Right.
developing into, like, the home studio thing wasn't popular at that point yet. I also was, one of the things people got to know me for, which I don't do anymore, and I always tell everybody, shut up, I don't do that anymore. But I was like, really, I became known for putting down ridiculous amounts of audio. Like in a 7-hour shift at Dion during the Audible boom, like back in 2012 and whatnot, I was putting down 5.5 finished hours in a 7-hour shift. So I'd do an 11-hour book in 2 days, right?
Wow.
And that was going on for like a while because I wound up doing like 30 books in under 3 months. And it was just like as fast as we could crank them out, so on. I don't do that anymore. So when everybody's like, oh, just PJ, PJ will have the book done yesterday. It's like, stop. No, it's not like that. So it was just something but the point is that it started to get my name around and what have you.
Right.
So we started the Dion Institute, and one of the first things I launched was the audiobook Introductory Intensive. So now it's been many years later, and that was where I was transitioning, not just being a dialect coach, but really like, hey, these are the ropes, teach people the ropes of getting into the business. And I designed that class where it was around like, I would tell everybody it's like 90% of it is fact-based, take it to the bank, nuts and bolts information. It doesn't get into the theoretical too much. It's not all about performance. And then we developed into like an advanced class that was more about performance. And then we started
the master class.
No, that's just like a continuation of the other, but the master class series was the next step. And that's what we're doing now, in addition to the other things whenever they come up. But the master class series is a huge hit. And
I know I was signed up, but it's 3 a.m. over here. And I know,
well, where you
so
are.
So many books. I thought, really, can I stay up till 3 a.m.?
Yeah, that's tough. No, that's intense. That's intense. I mean, you can do, if you want to plan it accordingly, you do a one-off. I mean, they're always available a la carte. You like pick one, I really want to do that one, and then just make sure you're not planning on waking up early the next day.
I think I'll do that next time.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I tell you, it is so rewarding to do them. It's such an incredible, like, supportive learning experience. People have a good time. Everybody comes away learning stuff and feeling good. And I just, it's very, very rewarding. I know that sounds cliche, but it really is rewarding to do it.
They do. They love it. I can tell you from the other side, people come away feeling good about themselves as narrators. And that in this day and age we can take as much of that as we can get, because people are feeling very insecure and overwhelmed and pressured, and things like the Diane masterclasses are helping build the inner core and strength. And we need as much of that as we can get right now.
I appreciate hearing that. And I think, and I agree with you, we do need that. And it's just, it's so good to have an environment where the learning is happening, but it's in a positive way. It's always positive. And no matter where you're at, in fact, it's kind of funny, like the only times I've given people a bit of grief, still in a fun way, but I only give people grief when they bring something. I say, were you just doing that one to show off? Like, are you here to learn anything? Like picking something that they know they're going to nail it. It's like, we have nothing to say to improve that, and the guest and whoever we have, it's the same idea. So, but yeah, it's really cool that everybody comes away with something, learning. And the fact that one of the things we stress, and I say this in my introduction in every class, is it's not speed dating. It's not director's diagnostics at APAC. This is not an audition. If you're coming to a 3-hour class for your 5 minutes on camera to read your piece, please stop signing up. That's not what this is about. You're here to learn from everybody. And if you spend the other 2 hours and whatever minutes in your head thinking about when it's your turn to read, you're missing out on all the gold because you're surrounded by it. So just get out of your head, take it in, enjoy, learn, think about what you are, what notes you would give to the narrator that you're listening to. And then does it line up with my notes and the special guest's notes? Take note of that and see.
It's huge that you said that, though, because the trend in LA and everywhere recently, I think they actually put a rule in or something against it, but casting directors were holding classes that you paid. Nobody was going to learn anything. They were going so the casting director realizes you're the next Pacino.
Well, yeah, but I honestly, there was something even more nefarious to that, because it was like a scheme. Because what was happening and what was starting to get revealed is that casting directors were only finding people that way. Like it was a pay-to-play thing. And people would go to these casting director workshops, and they're just paying to meet the casting director, because without that, the casting director is only bringing in people they meet at those things. And that was super sketchy. There was a legal battle around
That's what I thought. There was
absolutely.
Yeah.
Some people suffered heavily too. In fact, I can't remember his name. there's a really, really outspoken casting director. I can't remember. I knew him personally for the longest time, but now I haven't seen or heard from in ages. Anyway, he was like the most outspoken person against it. So he was doing like, you know, a scorch the earth campaign against anyone who was participating, and just, you know, burning tons of bridges. He didn't care. It was like it became a personal crusade
because it did a disservice. And
Totally.
I see people, and I think they should be corrected at every point, because the problem was the convergence of Zoom and everything being online. And then the casting directors and producers and publishers are going to be at this thing, and you can come.
Right.
And I went to the narrator's retreat, and you can meet the but you're not going there so that they see you. I'm sorry, because if that's what
Correct.
you're hoping, really, in
Sad.
2 minutes,
You're missing
they're
out.
going to like remember you forever.
You're missing out. Exactly. But
Yeah.
that's, and that's, I even say to people, I was like, look, you know, you want to do a good job and you want so-and-so to give you a book then in the next week or something. I get that, but it is not why we're here, and it's not why they're here. You know, that's the other important consideration. You know, when I am booking my special guests, that's part of the conversation as well, you know, is just the learning environment and so on. And that's what they're coming for. It's unfortunate when it becomes about that for certain people, but I make very clear that that's not what it's about. And I think that's also,
I love that you said that, though. And also, I think we need to check our motivation at the door. Yeah, like I said that I started Joe for the fun of it, but I was reading a book the other day. I said this to somebody. Somebody said, if you want to achieve something in the business, give to other people, see how you can help other people, get your name out there and become a name. I can tell you, been doing it for a year, just in case you wanted to try this as an exercise, have not booked one single job just because I've been, you know what I mean? But on the other side, I've made a million friends. I've had a positive experience. It's what you said. It's fulfilling. You have to check your reasons for doing these things at the door.
Exactly.
You got to do it because you love it and want to do it. Because you're not, because if you don't, you got to be okay with you don't get something from it.
Well, I think that's also a bigger lesson for life in general, isn't it? You know, like, are you putting positive things out into the world? Are you giving, or does it all have some ulterior motive of, you know, what's in it for me?
Yeah, checking the box.
You know, so that's a bigger conversation for sure. But that is something to really consider. I mean, when you look at, I mean, take the webcast is another good example. What Suzanne and I do.
love you on the webcast. You are like
Thanks.
Carol Burnett. You're like this like big personality that you like feel you've known since you were 5. I love you on that web. I don't know what you do, but you've got just like a twinkle or something when you get on it, and probably just you're having a good time.
Yeah, and I mean that's the point, right? But it's, if you look at it on like the work side of it, Suzanne and I have to put a lot of time into that whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's pure volunteerism. You know, that's a give back kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, because it's helpful and people like it, and it's a member benefit of being in the APA. So it's another area of like, you know, putting your money where your mouth is, or putting your time where your mouth is. You know, you want it to be that positive environment. You want to say to people, I mean, it's something I try to live by. If social media is another conversation entirely, but if anybody who knows what I do on social media, it's basically pictures of my pets and, you know, congratulating people on stuff. And that's basically it. I'm not saying that's how everyone should use social media, but I do think the world would be a phenomenally better place, an unrecognizably better place, if everybody had that sort of code of keeping it positive on social media. I mean, so much of the awfulness that is in the world, you know, we can point back to what's the variable, right? I often think about that. Like when you see things changing or things get bad, what's the variable over the last decade or two? You know, it's like, well, suddenly everyone is in this pit of narcissism on social media. Social media is one of the biggest variables of how life has changed over the last couple of decades. And you think of it and it's like, wow, you can't I mean, you can't go on Twitter or Facebook for that matter and not see lots and lots of people you know and otherwise respect. I know I'm getting a little controversial here, but
No,
just
controversy is good.
we like controversy. Hey, you're recording this, you put it out there. I'm sure
We're
I'll catch
narrators. We like to get to the juicy bit.
Isn't that the truth? But I mean, so many people who spend their time spewing vitriol into the world. What good does that do? I don't understand it. And I'll go to an extreme, for example. I will not even go on Facebook to talk about a crappy TV show I watched. I will not even do that because it's negative. I am not going to watch a thing. And and remember, I've been on the other side of this for 35 years too.
Mhm.
So there's just something, it just seems so basic to me. Like, yeah, word of mouth and like that's it. People do reviews of things or whatever. But if I watch a TV show that 700 people like have worked on and put so much effort into, and it wasn't
Right.
very good,
Right.
why do I need to go on social media and tell everyone how awful it is?
Yep.
Like how is that improving anything in the world?
Not my circus, not my monkeys.
Oh, one of my favorite lines ever. I love that.
You know what I
say it
mean?
all the time. Totally.
Why involve yourself in, and that's the thing with everyone had the, oh, social media is toxic. Literally, the minute I see something I don't like, I just snooze them for 30 days or hide it from my timeline. And then so me on social media, all I see is people, you know, showing their food and their kids and their dogs. And
you've curated your feed so that it's all possible. Yeah.
And then I get to post myself pictures of me when I was skinny in this outfit, and that outfit. You know, I've got like the first guy I ever kissed on there. I can pretend I'm still 15 and gorgeous, you know. Use it for what, you know. I do have to start posting more for work, but I've got some of my first writers on there.
You know what? That's another thing too, though. Even the work stuff, and of course, you'd never do something negative about the work, but even the work stuff, you keep it positive. You know, what do people want to hear about? Is there something, you know? And I do the same thing. I'll like, it's a mix of dog pictures and, you know, whatever kinds of things. And again, supporting others when I see things, and the occasional like job promotion thing, but hopefully in a positive way, hopefully in a fun, mildly entertaining way or something.
You're talking about putting it out there, right?
Exactly.
I learned a lesson in one of my first jobs in like an office somewhere, customer service. We did payroll. I can barely remember. But I had a customer that was horrible, just horrible. And I hadn't slept in that job. You couldn't go to the bathroom. You had to finish. And so she hung up and I promptly turned to my colleague and said something horrible about her. Quite a few horrible things, actually. And my colleague was like pointing at the phone. She hadn't hung up.
Oh.
So I got called into the boss, long story short. And the boss said, I'm not concerned that you told this crazy woman that she was this, this, and this. We'll keep the show child friendly. I'm concerned that you felt that about the job, that you were. So it's like, if I'm posting about a book I'm doing or something, and I feel the need to complain about it, I shouldn't be running my business that way, because that's the benefit. That's one of the big benefits of being a freelancer, that we design our business.
That's right.
So we should be going to work we love, loving our work. So of course you're going to post good stuff.
Exactly right.
Now, why are you, the bigger question is, why are you doing things that you feel negative about anyway?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing is, once again, it's this collaboration. I understand the need to vent. I get that. But there is something to, would you say this to everyone's face? You know, like, would you, if this was not through, even though it's not anonymity, but if it's not with the protection of a keyboard and a screen between you and the world, would you really be saying this? Like if we were all gathered around a thing? And I'm sorry, even a group, even a narrator's group or whatever, the idea that, oh, well, it's not, there's no producers or there's no, I'm a producer. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Careful.
Professional audiobook narrators. I'm an audiobook crowd. I'm an indie ACX. I'm a producer.
Yeah.
And there's more like me. and you think it doesn't impact, like if I see someone complaining about the book they're narrating, or they're like putting, in some cases, quotes from the book on social media, like talking about how bad the writing is.
Oh no.
Do you think, well, you've never seen that? It's
No, I've
practically
not
a daily
seen that.
occurrence.
As I've said, I curate my feed. I
Yeah,
don't,
and you're smart.
people like
You're
that
smart.
don't come on my page.
But the idea that, like, first of all, like, if anyone had the inclination to do this, you could probably Google the line and find out exactly what book it's from, if anybody even had a reason to do so. But it does make you wonder, like, how does that play? How does that play to someone who's in a position to hire you, that I might hire you for a book, but then if you don't like the writing, you're going to go on Facebook and quote the book and talk about how awful it is? We're actors. I mean, you know how many soap actors like can't stand their jobs because, you know, the writing might not live up to snuff, or doesn't.
But do they not convince themselves that they're liking it while they're doing it? That's, to me, the point of being an actor.
You're getting to the honest place. You're a good actor.
Yeah.
You get to the honest place of conveying the material in an honest way, and, you know, you get there. And I think it's the same thing with narrators. If you're going to take the job, you have to get there. You know, I mean, I use myself as an example. I've done books I don't put like my personal opinions out there in the world because I'm an actor. Although for some people, that's the very reason they put their personal opinions out there in the world. But I mean, in terms of like, I've done every religion book you can think of. I've done every political book you can think of, you know, and publishers come to me for whatever it is. And no matter what it is, even though there's quite a few things I've done that I completely and utterly disagree with, I am doing my job as an actor to, you know, embody the passion required to deliver that material.
But you make yourself love it during the process. Now, how can you do that and then go and post something nasty about it? Do you see what I'm saying? I have to convince myself. I learned how few morals I had when I started this job thing. It turns out there's not much that bugs me, but it was that. But then I would concentrate on the passion the writer has for this. You know what I mean? Because
that's the performance. I think we're saying the same thing in two different ways. That's the performance. You have to make the performance honest. You have to get there, whether it's the emotional scene in the YA, or whether it's conveying the passion the author has for X topic that he or she spent 3 years researching to write a book about it. It's still a performance, because even if it's a book I happen to love and do agree with, I am not so passionate about it that I dedicated a chunk of my life to writing a book about it. So even in those circumstances, I still say to people, it's a performance, you know, no matter what.
But when it's a performance, then you own that performance. So when you're trashing it, you're trashing something that you've got part ownership in now.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, how embarrassing is that?
I know. It's just, it's such a, I don't know, it's just a weird thing to me. So I try to live by that. And it's hard. Obviously it's hard, because we do want to vent. You want to complain about things. And I do. But I just don't do it in that environment.
But if you go to the good, because I know that the reason I started Cup of Joe is I was on a big group where a lot of narrators were on, and it was when they changed the codes. And I'll never forget this day. And some people were starting, there was just all these posts about all these new people are going to start, and then we're not going to have anything, and then nobody's going to have any books, and they're going to be recording in their closet, and they're not going to do a good job, and they're going to take over. And this was like right at the beginning of COVID and everything. And I remember immediately thinking, right, I need to like make some friends with some of these quote unquote new people, because if you're friends with someone, then you don't feel they're coming to steal your work. Right. So I thought maybe 7 of us will join. Next thing you know, there's like over 400 people on Cup of Joe, and every single one of them, well, maybe not every single one of them, some of them might not even know they've joined, I don't know. But most of them have become friends. And something has happened, or, you know, weather or something, we'd get together on a Thursday and we'd have a chat, and we'd find things in common, and those bonds turn it real. And somebody said to me, oh, people on Facebook aren't your friends. Well, actually, quite a few of these people have impacted my life significantly in a positive way. I think there's something to be said for going towards so much positivity, there's not enough space for the nastiness to get in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
Which is a bit airy fairy, I know.
No, I think there's a lot of merit to that. And as you say, you've got that environment that you have curated personally, that you've kept it positive. You've surrounded yourself with positive people, and it's working out. You get some good stuff out of that. Exactly. Yeah. It's a funny thing, but go ahead. You were going to say.
What do you find that you wish you could tell people that you coach, that you wish, how I used to say that with Sean, he would teach me things, and like 5 years later, I'd be, oh, that's what Sean meant. What do you find that you wish you could kind of plant in people's brains that took you maybe a long time to learn, or that takes time, but you wish you could shortcut?
One of the, it's a tricky question, but if there was one like magic move, if you will, in narration to really level up, and I talk about this all the time in the master classes, it's most importantly, above everything, is connection to the material. Are you really connected to it, and are you in it? That's first and foremost. There's no getting around that. It doesn't matter what the genre is, what you're doing. Are you connected? Are you there? There's a few others. I'm going to give you like a short list because I think they're all tied together, but why not, right? So another one I talk about is infuse everything you do with energy, especially creatively, and know at the same time that there's a difference between energy and size. So in other words, infusing it with energy doesn't mean you're making it big or you're going over the top. It means you're there, you're engaged, you're present. Much like I'm talking to you now. I care about what I'm saying. I'm engaged. I'm with you. We're there. I'm not checked out. It doesn't mean I'm doing like, lady over the top, but I'm with you, right? So that's an important thing of infusing whatever you do with energy. And again, not conflating that to mean size. A 3-word philosophy that I try to live by in my work, and I always try to convey to everybody, is commit, don't comment. And that's also directly tied to the idea of connectivity and infusing with energy. If you're committed to the material and not commenting on it, that's the sort of egregious error that sometimes that line gets crossed. And anybody with an acting background, we know the concept of commentary. Imagine this in many ways. Like we were talking about nonfiction you might not agree with. Well, if you allow that, like you said, we can hear it if the narrator doesn't love it. That's commentary. So if you're allowing that to come in, you're not committed to it. On the fiction side of things, an egregious example of commentary might be like you're doing a scene you're uncomfortable with. Maybe it's a graphic sex scene in a romance book or something, and you're uncomfortable with it. So commentary comes out in the form of the wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the audience of like, I'm not really going to touch this, you guys. I'm with you.
You're removed from the character. You're not
Precisely.
the character.
You're not there.
Paul Rubin would kill you for doing that because
I would expect so. Yeah. Yeah. So things like that, I think, are important. To tie this all back to the answer I wanted to give you at first, but I thought required some setup, is this is the thing that comes up all the time in the master classes, for me anyway. I'm a huge believer in infusing the narrative with the feelings of the character whose perspective it is. And when we talk about third person, it's important to know writing styles and a bit about writing theory. For example, there's like third person omniscient, which isn't used a whole lot anymore. And there's third person limited, and there's a scale. And third person limited is truly about where a writer has employed the technique of it's written in third person, but it's entirely, if it's truly, truly close, entirely limited to the head of that one character. Therefore, like if you've done, a YA or a romance where, this is her chapter and then the next chapter is his chapter and they alternate, it might be written in third person, but if it's third person limited, there's clearly a different voice in that narrative. In her chapters, we're only getting her thoughts, but she might speculate on his thoughts. He looked like he was happy with the situation. Whereas we might get her thought, which is, I'm really happy with the situation, right? So in italics or what have you, that is true third person limited. Now, once we've identified that, I'm a huge believer in infusing that with the feelings of that character. You're not a fly on the wall. It's basically first person with different pronouns. It doesn't mean that if something is extreme going on with the character voicing, it's not like you're going to necessarily bring the character's voice to the narrative, but you are absolutely positively going to inform it with the feelings of that character.
Where were you? Somebody asked me that question, like on one of the calls, and they said that they get so bored when and I was trying to explain that to them, but I couldn't. I'd never crystallized it like that. Where were you when I needed you, PJ? That's
I'm
perfect.
sorry. Did you call? I was there. I did. Yeah. Yeah.
That's perfect. That's exact. That's yes. I love that. I love that so much.
It's a big deal, I think. And it also speaks directly to the concept of author's intent. If we say our prime directive is to convey the author's intent, well, guess what? You kind of need to know what it is to execute.
Yeah.
So if the author's intent is third person limited and you don't know what that is, and you didn't identify it in your prep of the book, right? It's tricky, because I'll give you a really good example. Someone I work with who's become a wonderful narrator. But I did a master class at, using that term again, but totally unrelated to the Dion master classes. I did a master class at APAC a couple of years ago, and I called it the POV master class, right? And it was all about this. And people really loved it. I mean, again, you talk about rewarding experiences. There were long-time like Audi's judges in the audience who came up to me afterwards. Someone who I know is an Audi's judge, phenomenal person, big figure in the industry, came up and said, I have been praying for this for years. Like every narrator needs to know this. I was like, good,
it's gold.
Awesome.
It's gold. And even the bits
important.
that you sensed or you did subconsciously, it's that you just turned it into a tool. It's something that like I always instinctually, just from having acted, but I couldn't describe it to someone. And you just crystallized it.
Oh, good.
And that turned it into a conscious. That's what you meant about you being a good teacher.
Actionable thing. Yeah.
That's what you meant about you being a good teacher.
Well, thanks. Yeah, to a degree. I mean, you've got to be able to understand the stuff and then articulate the stuff. And especially when you're a private coach, you know, when you work with people in one-on-one settings, there is something also to be said for adapting. You know, reading the room is obviously always an important thing, but reading the room when it's a room of one, you've got to know, you know, what works for certain people. And this is especially true when it comes to technical things. Like if I'm teaching like the character voices or working with someone as a dialect coach, people learn in different ways. I might take someone who's into linguistics and I'll be talking IPA the whole time when we're talking about sound changes. Someone else not only might not know what IPA is, they've never heard of a schwa. That's fine too. But I need to be able to communicate the things that are going to help them get to where they need to get to. So that's essential. I don't want to forget this point about the POV thing, right?
Yes,
so there was this person I was working with, and I used, with his permission, I used a clip from when he first started working with me. It was something he had done before he came to me as a coach. So I played it. This was an interesting moment too, because there was a not nice reaction to it when I played it in the audience. And not becoming a school marm or anything, I had to let everybody know, like, hey, you know, you didn't start off as Audi winners out of the gate either here. We're here to learn, you know?
But people, what do you mean a not nice reaction? People
just were because it wasn't a great performance, you know, and that was part of why I was playing it, because the narrator missed something. They got
other narrators were commenting on that?
Yeah, a little from the audience, little sniggers about how, you know, it wasn't very good. And obviously that's awful, but let's leave that aside for now.
Yeah, sorry.
Because I was able to finish it with, and I bookended it and played a clip of him doing a new piece, same narrator, and people were blown away because it was this adjustment that the whole session was about. So it really turned into this great bookend moment, and it was this triumphant kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
That narrator wasn't there, you know, as someone who wasn't at APAC, but just to have like, okay, you remember how we started, now look how he sounds now, right? But here's the point. The reason that first piece, and the reason I used it as an example, I got everyone in the room to agree, and I mean, whatever, like 600-700 people in the room. Is it our job as narrators to convey the author's intent? Is it fair to say that's our prime directive? And everybody gets on board with that. Cool. Okay. Everybody agrees. So even though we're getting into something really subjective because it's performance related, right? is it fair to say that if an author's intent is that this is a third-person limited chapter and all of that narrative is filtered through the head of that character, if you get that wrong, if you infuse that with another character's POV in all the narrative, isn't it fair to say then, if that's not the author's intent, then even though this is a subjective performance thing, that technically we're doing something wrong, right? And here's where it gets into that little bit of a gray area. But to me, it's still pretty damn black and white. So the clip, the point was, it was like this serial killer thing. And it's this woman, she's, you know, it's a dark scene. She's like chained to a wall. She's in a cellar. She's terrified, blah, blah, blah.
That's my kind of book.
Yeah. And then like halfway through the scene, the serial killer, she hears the steps and he's like coming down the steps into the cellar, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
What the narrator did was all of the narrative was like this, you know, she was chained against the wall and she had, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, hold on. This is completely wrong, because his approach to it was essentially to use the serial killer's dark, scary POV, if you will. The serial killer wasn't in the room. So I pointed out all the clues in the writing of, you see, this is her POV from this chapter. And all of that narrative is informed by her terror, her anxiety, her nervousness, her fear, all of that. Those are the things that need to be informing this. Not scary dude who's going to come down with the knife, right? So suddenly it's completely reimagined, and then it comes to life because now it's informed the right way. You know, so understanding that stuff is really critical. I think it's a huge part of the gig. Okay.
And also,
complete. There you go.
I love that. No, I love that. And also because you're living in, and it's more fun and pleasurable. It makes your job, you get to be the terrified girl. You're in the moment. It's all that keeps bringing you back, even though I hate it when you do coaching and they're like, bring it down a little. What are you seeing right now? You're in the moment. Even as an actress, when you hear that and you're like, oh, because you know better, and still sometimes, but that's what it is.
But when we talk about connectivity, right?
Yeah.
How can you focus on connectivity when you're not connecting to the right things?
Yeah.
You're not actually connecting with the author's intent. You're making random choices that have nothing to do with what that narrative represents. You know, it's super, super important. So, and
also the choices, because that's a pet peeve of mine, is people that bring all the choice making into the booth. To me, the choices are, you want to forget that you're the narrator before you get into the booth. You get into the booth and you become, I'm really, really like, I am airy-fairy about this, but I think you get into the booth and you become the damn character. You don't think, is my voice sounding, I'm listening to a book right now and it's taking me ages because all I'm hearing is the narrator going, is my voice sounding this way? My voice sounds really slick here. It's like, I don't want to care about your
Gardner,
voice.
if you guys know Grover, not only a legendary narrator, but Grover also in casting at Blackstone. Grover was my guest at one of the first master classes we did. He flew down from Oregon when we were doing them in person at Dion. And he put it so succinctly, and I've used this many times since because it really gets to the heart of it. He says that when you send me an audition, I can tell if you're listening to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
What more do you need?
Yeah.
What more do you need?
And
like,
but
that's
right
exactly
there is that's where I have problems with accents. I have to be confident enough to go in and not think about the accent the whole time I'm narrating the book. Not my, but some of them I'm great. Some of them. So I don't want to miss this part, PJ. As we're running towards the end of the call, traditionally, we were wondering if you could please say something to the YouTube audience that will be watching you for the next 60, 80 years. Words of wisdom you'd like to leave them with.
My God.
You know, a warning, anything, you know, horoscope. What would you like your last words of the show to be for our YouTube audience?
Wow. Talk about an unexpected final bit. Nice curveball. Really, Daniela. I'm going to go back to something I talked about earlier. Yeah, I mean, if it's the last words kind of idea, I would say keep it positive, no matter what, and it's all about love. You know, it's like it'll always come back to that. It's all about love.
I think that's perfect for you, because I can safely say, no, I mean, I talked to you on the webcast that time, but I've never worked with you yet. After tonight, I'm going to be like, PJ, but I can safely say that you do that for us. As I said, you bringing up Gina's Just Keep Dancing saved me at a really hard time during this whole thing. And you had a whole bit on the webcast about positive things and reaching out. And I don't think we can be reminded about that enough. And you always do. You always leave people with a feeling that they're good enough. And
because they are.
But people,
because they are. See, that's the thing. It's not. It's not lip service. You know, I try to, and I so appreciate you saying that, because it obviously it means a lot to me. But they are enough. That's the whole point.
They still need to hear it, though. And the fact that it isn't lip service is what makes it so powerful. Because we get all the lip service on Facebook. I could message 700 people and have them tell me I'm fabulous, gorgeous, and skinny, and I still look just like I did when I was 15. But you're genuinely share that energy, and I just think it's if we could all do that.
I appreciate that. I think, I mean, there's I don't know. There's a lot of ways people can make a difference out there, and I struggle with that because I'm very, very lucky. I mean, I've worked my ass off for decades to get what I want and to achieve what I want in this industry, and I continue to, and I won't stop. That's me. But that doesn't make me any less grateful for what I've managed to achieve. And I don't know. I mean, it gets a bit deep and all, but I think you try to imagine you get to the end of the road, right? Wherever and whenever that is. And you think, did I make a difference? Did the work matter? Was I distracted by all these things that didn't matter? Did I do the right things with my time and everything else? And it's hard. And when it comes to being flawed, I got a lot of people beat in spades. So it's not about achieving any kind of, perfection or some sort of moral high ground. It's not that. It's that you want to do good things. Hopefully everyone wants to, and make a difference in whatever way you're able to. Where I'm at currently in my life, I'm not going to be, earning the Congressional Medal of Honor for saving my platoon from destruction. I'm not, it's not going to be about awards or things like that. I'm not running some massive nonprofit that's changing the world and saving people from hunger. And you think about it, but it's like the position I'm in and the skills I have and the things that I see that could do for some help and some fixing, if you will. Yeah. We go back to this idea of the positivity and the thing I mentioned earlier, something that everybody I know personally could do right now to help make the world a better place, if you will. And again, I'm not preaching from some soapbox. I really hope it doesn't come across that way.
It doesn't.
But if you just ask yourself before clicking share or post or whatever, is this positive?
Yeah.
3 words, just that. And if everybody did that, I know it's a complete absurd.
You say that about the platoon. Think about it this way. The messages I got before your call were about how PJ's touched my life. PJ liked me. PJ's been nice to me, this and that. Every one of the narrators that you have in small ways helped empowered. You're empowering them. You say, yes, everyone is enough. They are okay, but not everyone knows that. So every single narrator that you help understand that they are enough and empower them, they go off and think about the job a narrator does. They narrate books and I listened to audiobooks, and they saved me through one of the darkest, scariest times. So every single one of the narrators that you touch with the positivity and empowering go off, and we record these books that touch numerous people who could be going through their dark times. And then they get stronger and they go off and they're empowered to do what they want. So talk about a legacy. I mean, it's big, much bigger than a platoon. The people that you're empowering are going off and helping numerous people. So it's amazing.
I appreciate that.
Worthwhile work.
In the grand scheme, you know, I just hope, you know, I just hope it's good. I just, you know, you want to put good out there. I do anyway. I want everyone to want that, but I just know that where I'm at in my life and with what limited power I have, you know, not holding some big office or something. I'm an actor who happens to have some reputation in the industry that I'm in. And I just look at that and I think, what's the best I can do right now to help? Yeah. And that's what I try to do anyway.
You've used it to help, and through your art and your coaching and just your positive. I think that a lot of negativity, especially online, comes from insecurity. And I think empowering people is the biggest thing that can nip that in the bud.
It can counteract that for sure.
Yeah. So
I agree with that. I think that's right.
Superpower.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I don't know about that, but although, if you remember in Little Man Tate, I wore a cape. And then
I have to say, you guys, when I found out he was the guy in Little Man Tate, that I was like, every message I sent to PJ, I hope you didn't notice. I was like, oh my God, what do I say? Okay, how do I word this?
You're hilarious.
Did you see
the thing? Did you see the young Sheldon that I did a couple of weeks ago?
I didn't. What is that?
Okay. So the TV series Young Sheldon about the character from Big Bang Theory. So
because I'm in the UK, so I don't
see so you might not even know about it. It's the number one show on TV in America. So it's a sitcom, and it's about Jim Parsons' character from Big Bang as a little kid. In fact, it just got picked up for its 5th, 6th, and 7th seasons in one order. They just extended it for 3 seasons. Huge.
I'll see if I can get it over here. I'm sure I can get it on Amazon.
And it's such a wonderful group of people. It's, you know, Chuck Lorre is the producer, and everything he touches, you know, turns to gold, and just an amazing cast. Great people. Anyway, all that said, I was a guest star and I played Rene Descartes on an episode a few weeks ago. But what was funny was, this was something I put on social. I had the side-by-side pictures of me from Tate and me from Sheldon. In both cases, I'm wearing a cape. And what I said was, I said in 1991, I played a genius who befriends a child prodigy, a cape-wearing genius who befriends a child prodigy in 1991.
I saw that post. That's when I figured out that was you. I was like, wait a minute.
And then I said, and in 2021, I played a cape-wearing genius who befriends a child prodigy.
I still have to look that up.
As niches go, it's pretty specific, but look out 2051. So we'll see what the next one comes in 30 years from now.
That's synchronicity. I'm gonna check that out. I'm gonna watch that.
Synchronicity is a great word for it, because it really felt like that. You know, you get those signposts that make you feel like, okay, I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
Just little things, whether it's some crazy case of deja vu or something, right? Just little moments.
Do you know what I heard recently? Because when I was first made redundant, it's the kind of thing where you think of a word, or somebody says a word that's like an odd word that you never think of, and then like 2 minutes, or a song, and then 30 minutes later it's on the radio, and it's like,
right.
That is, I heard this. I like this theory. I don't know if it's true or not. That is the universe telling you it's getting in alignment, and you might start to notice a few more of those things. And that means something's about to shift.
Yeah.
Something big
For
is
me,
going to happen.
I've heard that as well. I'm right there with you.
I love
For me,
that.
though, I take it as they're just these little markers that let you know you're on the right path. Like these things were meant to be, because it's just too, I don't know, it's just too out there or too random to have happened by accident, you know? So that was how I felt at that moment. When I kind of made that connection, it really felt like, okay, you know, 91 was a real high point.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff has happened in the last 30 years and, you know,
Yeah.
my career and personal life and everything. And then it sort of felt like, okay, this is good. You're exactly kind of where you want to be. And sure, it's never all perfect. It's not supposed to be, but on the path, on the journey, this is good. You know, you just went under another sign and it was like, all right,
the universe is telling you something.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I took it anyway. So I'll keep going with that, whether it's right or wrong. So.
I shall look up young Sheldon. Thank you, PJ. This has been pure joy.
Same for me.
Wonderful talking to you.
I really appreciate, Daniela, you taking the conversation in places that a lot of these types of things don't go. So it was really fun and enjoyable for me too. I'm so glad you asked me.
Oh, thanks. It was wonderful. Because at the end of the day, we want to get to know the person.
Yeah. There you go. Hopefully we did a little bit of that. But and thanks to all you guys who showed up. I'm glad to be here with you. I wish I could
guys.
hear from all of you. So it was great stuff.
We'll have the video up soon, and I shall be in touch begging you for accent classes.
Anytime.
Take care. Bye, PJ. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Come on, everybody, tap along. First you scrub a dub, then you tap and rub. You might have to yell when you hear the bell ring out loud and long. Oh, everybody scrub along and play. Tap that